A lot of people don't really understand what OCD is. You'll always talk to someone who'll be like, oh, I have OCD. Like, I like being really neat and stuff.
I was just wondering if you were intimidated with having him on set.
Physically seems like he would be intimidating because he's tall, but he's just a sweetheart. He's like a teddy bear. He's really like the nicest guy.
If you think about it, YouTube can get you more views than any festival in the world could.
OCD having 40 million views off YouTube and then TikTok and everything combined is kind of crazy when there's people that would pay like hundreds of thousands of dollars to get 40 million views.
Welcome back to another episode of the IndieFilm Insider podcast. My name is Owen Carr, DP and producer, here with
Jake Rossbell, a writer and director.
Today's episode, we talked with Luca Pizzoleo. You might know him from your YouTube recommended homepage, where he recently uploaded a film called O.C.D. that stars Stephen Ogg, who is the protagonist of GTA 5. He's been on a bunch of different shows like Better Call Saul, Walking Dead, etc. Of course, we talk a lot about his film O.C.D. in this episode. We talk about kind of how he went through pre-production, how he managed to get someone as notable as Stephen Ogg in the film in the first place, and then, of course, all the films that he's done beforehand to get up to this point.
He encourages people to post clips of his short film, and that's something that you don't really see a lot because people want to gatekeep, they want to make their film their own, they want to get all the views to themselves, but he knows the more eyeballs you get on a film, the better it's going to be for the project.
And we also talk a little bit about comparing and contrasting YouTube as a film festival alternative. So for people who might not want to do film festivals, you have billions of people ready to watch your film right on YouTube. So this is a phenomenal conversation with Luca, and if you enjoyed it, be sure to do all the YouTube stuff, like, comment, and subscribe, and enjoy this conversation with Luca Pizzoleo. Luca, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Of course, yeah, we're really looking forward to talking with you, talking about all the films that you've done, all the experiences that you've had. But first, for anyone who isn't aware of you or your work, can you just give us a quick rundown of who you are, what type of films you make, what you've done in the past, stuff like that?
Sure. I'm an independent filmmaker. I'm based in Los Angeles, California. I've been making shorts for, a little over 10 years now. Started with little Lego stop motions, and now they've, kind of excelled to this position that I'm at now. And yeah, generally drama, comedy, really, it's just anything that speaks to me. I'm not a one genre type guy. I like genre bending, but I think as a whole, I just love character-driven films, character-driven stories, and I think you can kind of tell based on my previous work, it's mainly really all about character. So that's kind of what I do, and yeah.
So what's your most recent project? Because everyone I'm sure has seen it pop up in their YouTube recommended, but just tell us a little bit about OCD.
Sure. OCD is about a neurotic delivery driver named Owen who resists his OCD compulsions in his convenience store, and that triggers the apocalypse.
Right. Yeah, I like that a lot because I kind of figured out pretty quickly what was going on with what you were trying to get at with of course the legendary Stephen Ogg's character.
Legend.
But I thought that was really clever, and you can see in the comments too, a lot of people really like spoke to them, and I was just kind of wondering like where the idea for OCD originated.
Yeah, the idea came from our writer Connor Patrick Walsh. So I had met Connor through my manager, and shortly after Connor and I had met up in person, we did a kind of like introductory Zoom, and then we did an in-person thing, and we were at this local bar. And, a couple drinks in, you kind of get a little like real with each other. And he spoke to me about how he had suffered with OCD his whole life. And it was something that also I had dealt with. And so we really connected with that. And he told me, he said, I've always had this idea about what if all your intrusive thoughts became a reality? And it just like immediately stuck with me. So I went home and kind of came up with the idea that just kind of like the bare bones of the film, the convenience store and like maybe the robbers and a couple other little, morsels of an idea. I pitched it back to Connor and I was like, this is kind of what I'm thinking based off your initial idea. And he just absolutely loved it. And really shortly after, we went into like full pre-production. We worked every day for like weeks, just, building out the story, because also too, our intention with OCD was to make it into a feature, and so we wanted to kind of lay the groundwork within the short that we could use as a proof of concept pitch for the feature, but we still also wanted the short to be contained in it of itself. But generally, in terms of the idea, where that started was Connor and that kind of little nugget of an idea, and then we expanded upon that.
Is doing that still in the cards? Like, are you still working on the feature?
We had written the feature. I think it's just right now in Hollywood in specific, it's a little bit difficult to get your projects off the ground, especially as a new independent filmmaker, especially if you're not proven already having a feature done. So to make the OCD feature, that's 100% something that we would want to do in the future. That's something I'm very 1,000%. I'm going to do it one day. I don't know if it's going to be next year or 2 movies from now. I have no idea. But generally speaking, yes, like I would love to definitely continue down that path and create the OCD feature.
And then with the feature, like, what are some things that you would be looking to expand that you didn't get to touch on in the short film?
It honestly, a lot of it would just be Owen and where his OCD has originated from. I think, a lot of people, I'm sure you could tell in the film, a lot of people don't really understand what OCD is. And so like you'll always talk to someone who'll be like, oh, I have OCD. Like I like being really neat and stuff. And, it's okay. But I don't think people truly understand that you have a compulsion, and that compulsion, if you don't give into it, you feel like can have dire consequences. And OCD is a really, expansive disorder where a lot of people have, not even physical compulsions, but just mental compulsions. It's really different for everybody, but just in the general term of it, that was mainly our goal. Outside of just creating a movie that we felt was kind of fun, because for us, it's like, I think the best way to tell an important story sometimes is through comedy, because you can kind of laugh at yourself while also kind of getting a message across. So I think just expanding upon it in every aspect, and especially Owen and his backstory and the agent and how the agent has a deeper connection to Owen's own origin, which is something I don't want to spoil, but it is very cool, kind of the ideas that we've come around it. And obviously we've already written the script. It's just a matter of if we can find the funding and the place to do it.
Just real quick, I was wondering exactly how you came into contact with Stephen Ogg, because I think that's obviously like a really big deal, because he's, one of the protagonists in Grand Theft Auto 5. Like and he's also like in The Walking Dead, Better Call Saul. It's in a bunch of like just random stuff, and he's kind of everywhere. So what was the process to, I guess, meeting with him?
Stephen, I was able to reach out to him through his manager. So I was able to get his manager's contact information. And I had my girlfriend, Bridget, she helped me create a pitch deck on Canva. So shout out Canva, because we used them like crazy for like all the pitch material. But I made a PDF pitch deck with her and sent that over to Steven's management team. And then Steven had read the initial thing, and then they said, okay, cool. Can you send us a script? I sent the script. It was like within a day, Steven had read it. He was like, I love this. And he called me, I think like a few days after that, and we had like an initial meeting over the phone. And then after that, it was, let's meet in person. And I think we did around 5 or 6 in-person meetings before actually getting to set. But reaching out to him was through his management team. And then that just kind of, the rest is kind of history.
That's super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Steven definitely strikes me as somebody who is just kind of in it for the love of the art. Like I've seen him do a couple of other indie projects with people too, and it's like I know that's another name that comes to mind doing that is the guy who played Harry Potter. Daniel Radcliffe. Yeah. I know after he ended his 7 movies or have like 8 movies with Harry Potter, he started doing a lot of indie stuff. It seems like just like something that is, I guess, a trait of a good actor too.
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily like you have to do that, of course, but just somebody who loves to support independent filmmakers and kind of give them a chance to get their movies off the ground just by using their name.
And you really hit it on the head, because it's exactly right. Like that is how Steven is. Steven is just someone who's in it for the love of the craft. And when I had, initially reached out to him, he told me that it was the story is what made him want to do the film. It's not about whether it's a short or a feature or this big budget thing or a small, little, tiny budget. It was that the character spoke to him, the story spoke to him. And anytime he tells me all the time, anytime he gets a chance to play is just, it's a good day. So it's something I really admire about him. And I do agree with you that I think it is kind of a sign of a very, of a good artist, because I think any artist, no matter what, is going to just want to do their craft rather than making it about money and making it about, notoriety, which are obviously things that, can come with it, but doing it specifically for the love is something I really, really admire.
And what made you think of him specifically? Like, were you in the pre-production process and you're like, there's no one else who can portray this role other than Stephen Ogg?
I mean, dude, yeah, like he's just so sick. Like anything he's in, he just commands the screen. He's always just so, watching him, you just like, you're drawn to him, and he's amazing in everything, whether that's like The Walking Dead or even GTA. He's just fantastic in everything. So he's always been an actor I've always wanted to work with. And when we were writing this character, I did see him and I was like, this would be really cool if we were able to get him for this, but I'm like, that's probably not going to happen. So he was someone who came to my mind very early, for sure. When we were in the process of writing the script and everything, we did put out a public casting call, and we're able to get auditions through just kind of open, non-union actors. But I think just Steven, there really wasn't anybody else that role was for.
Yeah. No, totally. I think he's, again, like you said, just a really brilliant actor. And I think that, I don't know, I feel like everyone has seen him. And because like my mom, for example, I was telling her, I was like, oh yeah, we're going to have this guy on our podcast who directed a film with Stephen Ogg. She's like, who is that? And I showed her a picture of him, and she's like, oh, I know that guy. She's like, I don't know what I know him from, but I just know his face, and I know how his voice sounds, because he's he's kind of a character of himself, or a character in and of itself.
He's so, and it's true, dude. Like meeting people and like showing them the film, they're like, oh fuck, you got that guy. And I'm like, I didn't realize how, popular he truly was. When we were filming OCD and we were in the convenience store, there was moments where people would be walking by and they would look in and be like, oh my God. And they would wait outside and just wait, for Steven to be on lunch or something, and then come out, and he would come out and take pictures with them. So it definitely surprised me, because obviously I'm very aware of him and all of my friends are, but I didn't truly realize like how well known he was just out in the public, even to people who you wouldn't think would know who he is, like my mom and my grandma, which they both do.
Yeah. And then along with Steven, if you go into I'm sure you read the comment on OCD all the time. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people commenting on Steven's performance, but there are also a significant amount of people talking about Owen's Raz Fitz is the actor. Yeah. Obviously, but a lot of people are talking about his performance as well, and how kind of he killed it basically as the main character. Is there anything, I mean, obviously he's a talented actor, of course, mm-hmm. but getting into, I guess, the directorial side, is there anything notable that you did that you think kind of helped pull the performance that you ended up getting out of him?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tricky to be self-reflective about my own directing and be like, I did this and this is why the performance is so good. I feel like it's hard for me to do that without, maybe having someone else speak on it, because I think what definitely helped, because what helped the performances a lot is in any project I go into, I love to have like prep time. I love to have rehearsal. I love to have moments where I can just make the actors comfortable in the space, because it's something I've spoken on a lot, is that when an actor feels safe and comfortable, then they will, perform, and they'll take risks, and they'll do something different that maybe they wouldn't do if they were uncomfortable. And so I think creating a safe environment on set for your actors to play in, that's one thing that I definitely think helps a lot, because acting is inherently, it's kind of embarrassing, right? It's a little scary. You're getting up in front of a whole crew and doing something, and sometimes you might do something that's like cringe or whatnot, but you have to be okay with that as an actor. And if you can create that environment that an actor feels comfortable and safe, then I think they're more willing to explore. So I do think, I'd like to think that I create a very comfortable space for my actors. And also to your point about Roz is phenomenal. He's an amazing actor. And I've known Roz for 15 years now. I met Roz on Xbox. We were playing Call of Duty, like Modern Warfare 2. We were in like the same lobby, and we both had like prepubescent voices. So I knew we were both kids, and I was like, what school do you go to? And he's like, I go to this school. And I was like, I go to that school. What the hell? And then we ended up meeting up like the next day at class, and we've just been best buddies ever since. But I did still make him audition for OCD, but he obviously was somebody who he just had a different connection to the material, because also Roz, outside of myself and Connor, does have OCD. And so it was something that I think helped him have a better understanding of Owen as a character. So I think that level of authenticity definitely translated into the performance.
Yeah. That's absolutely insane. You met him on Call of Duty. That's and
I know.
he just happened to live nearby. Like, what are the odds
I
of
know.
that?
It's very weird, but very grateful for it.
Yeah, no, that's a cool story. Kind of going back to Steven for 1 second, as I also had a question, because I also, obviously, I think every indie director imagines getting like a big star in their film, because of course, like that's one of the coolest things ever. So I was just wondering if you were intimidated with having him on set. Like, did you ever feel like any imposter syndrome, like I'm not good enough? He's worked on bigger shows. He's gonna judge me, thinking I'm not like, not quite. I don't have the skills to cut it.
That's a great question. For me in particular, I don't feel the imposter syndrome really anymore. I think definitely a few years ago. I think a lot of the times when I would make movies, I did this movie called Gold, a few years ago. And when I finished it, I was like, this was just a waste of money. This was terrible. What a waste of my time. Everyone thinks I'm stupid, whatnot. I definitely got a lot of those intrusive thoughts and that feeling back then. But I think the more that I have done it, I am definitely very confident in the work and in the material. So I do feel a sense of confidence going into set. And with Steven in particular, I think what helped a lot of any nerves that I would have had and putting those at ease was the fact that we had met so many times prior to actually shooting. Because if he did show up on set and I had never met him, face to face, and we hadn't shared, multiple hours getting to know each other and just chatting as normal people do, then I do think I would feel a little bit more intimidated, because he is definitely somebody who physically seems like he would be intimidating, because he's tall and he's like 6'2". I'm just like average height. I'm like 5'9", and so I'm always like, oh shit, when you meet someone like that. But he's just a sweetheart. He's like a teddy bear. He's really like the nicest guy, and he's such a wonderful actor for a director to work with, because he just gives you so much to choose from. Whether I were to tell Steven, that was great, let's just do it again like that, he would still give me something a little different, even though it would be in the same kind of vein as the previous take. So it would give you a lot of range when you're in the editing room, because I think as a director, you kind of need to direct with the edit in mind. But to answer your question before I stray away, I wasn't necessarily intimidated. Definitely meeting him for the first time, I did feel like maybe I could feel that way, but as soon as I met him, all that kind of just went away. And on set, I felt completely confident and comfortable.
Yeah. Also, another aspect of it is he has seen the pitch deck, he saw the script. Yep. He wouldn't be on board with the project unless he had faith in you, had faith in the crew, had faith in everyone else who was there.
Exactly. And it's a good point you bring up, dude, because it's like when I was younger, that would be my biggest fear, is I would have people coming to set for a film and I'd be like, God, what if they think the script is bad? Or what if they think this is bad? Even though they've already agreed to it, we'll be in the middle of a take and I'll be like, I don't know if the dialogue sounds good. I think they're thinking the same thing. I used to do that a lot. But it's exactly your point, giving, Steven like a pitch deck and the script and him loving the material, and then also seeing my previous work like Frenchman and In the Valley of the Moon, and he loved the shorts. It definitely gave me a sense of I know he wants to be here. I know he wants to do this. I know he believes in me as a filmmaker. So that definitely also helped out a lot.
Yeah. And then you also mentioned directing with the edit in mind. I believe you were also an editor on OCD. So
yes.
How do you find that split? Do you like being able to be in control of the edit? Because the edit is very, you're making a lot of creative decisions there too. So have you ever tried to offload that to someone else, or do you feel comfortable editing it?
Every time I try to find an editor every movie. I'm not really... Editing is not my passion. It's not something I want to do. I'm not particularly fond of the actual act of editing and being in, Premiere and working on it. But with OCD in particular, this was the only movie that I had felt this sort of calling to actually make sure that I edited it. And I don't know if that was just because it was very personal, dealing with OCD, but also I think I knew when we were shooting it, I knew it was special, and I knew it was going to do well, both online and in the festival. I already knew, and as long as the edit was good, I knew it was going to do well, or at the very least, as well as I assumed it was going to do. So I don't want to edit in the future, but editing as a director, you do learn a lot more, and it's something, I forget who said it. There was an actor who said the best directors are also the best editors, and it's something that I think is really true, because when I'm on set, I know what I need. And a perfect example is this. In the script, when Owen falls over and crawls to the ice cream, the script is just written as Owen crawling, and he, gets to the end and like reaches up and grabs the ice cream and fixes it. But when we were on set, I'm thinking, okay, I need something here. It's a little quiet. I already filmed Roz doing the crawl, and I was like, this is going to be quiet in the edit room. I already know how it's going to look. And so I asked Steven, I said, can you give me some improv yelling at Roz while he's crawling? And that's where he's going, crawl faster, you're crawling like a baby, all those sorts of things. And that was completely improv. And that was on the day of me just realizing we didn't have enough footage to make it as engaging as I wanted to make it in the editing room. So being able to edit is definitely a great tool to have as a director, but I don't want to be the actual. I would love to get somebody that I could look over their shoulder and be like, yeah, this is great, which is what most directors do. But yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've also heard people say that as an edit, it's always good to have an editor, or at least someone who works with the editor on set as well, to kind of relay a lot of like the thoughts, I guess, or just to see what's going on. Right. Especially like on lower, indie stuff where you can easily forget to film something or not film enough of something. So I don't know. I think that's I also am kind of a director editor. I also agree though. Mm-hmm. I don't really like editing. Owen's much more of an editor than I am. So I think that's also, I try to push everything I can to him if I,
give it
if
all
I
to
can.
him.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I think that's good. Or I think that for OCD in particular, it was you could tell that the edits were very specific. And I think that, it was, I don't know if I was if I were the director on that, I would definitely feel kind of, have like some anxiety handing it off to anyone, because there's a lot of quick cuts, a lot of specific things that it does that I don't think someone else. I mean, obviously, I'm not trying to say that someone else can't figure it out, but I would be terrified.
It's tricky, man. I say at every project, I'm like, I'm not going to edit this thing. I'm not doing it. But then, when I get all the footage, I sort of feel precious about it. And it's like what you said. It's scary handing that off and trusting somebody enough to go, yeah, take my baby and then go, do what you will with it, which obviously is not how like most directors work. You still want to be with somebody, but even then it's difficult when you're on the indie space, because then you have to find somebody who's willing to meet up with you and edit together, and how much time can you devote, whereas like I can devote as much time as I want. OCD, when we finished it, we wrapped in January last year. It took me like 2 weeks to get the first draft of it, because I had to get it off to our sound designer, and that was pretty much a picture lock draft that I was able to get into 2 weeks. But that's because I didn't sleep, and I was up for like 40 hours at a time and like going insane. But that, I would feel kind of bad doing that to just another editor or filmmaker. It would take a lot more time. So, I can kind of like abuse my own time, which I think helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the film has seen a lot of success on YouTube. It has right now like 2 million views, something like that.
Yeah, about.
I believe you also have had some decent success on the festival circuit, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about kind of the highlights of that festival run and kind of the festivals that you've been to and any experiences you've taken away from those?
The festival run for OCD was, like I had said previously, I definitely had a level of confidence going into the festivals, feeling like I think we're gonna do well, but I definitely didn't anticipate how well we were going to do, especially on the YouTube side of things. I was kind of thinking in my head, I know this will probably get at least 100,000 views. And like, for me, I'm not measuring success based on festival acceptances or even views. The success for me is finishing the movie, the movie and making something that you're passionate about and that you felt the need to create. That's all the success I need, and the rest is just a nice cherry on top. But in terms of highlights, I mean, South by Southwest Australia was awesome. That was like an incredible experience. I went to Australia. I made a really excuse to just take a big trip out there, and I went to Brisbane. I went to the Irwin Zoo, the Steve Irwin Zoo. I cried. Cool. I like grew up with Steve Irwin, so it was like I was sobbing, like holding a koala and shit. Like it was amazing. And then, you know, coming back to Sydney and doing the festival and, you know, Jordan Bastian, who's an amazing festival programmer. She's just like the sweetest person I've ever dealt with on the festival side of things. And meeting her and meeting all the other filmmakers. And I had met, you know, a great handful of filmmakers at the festival, even just around TikTok, because all of the OCD content on TikTok did around 40 million views. And so we were able to kind of reach a broad network of people. And I really think everything as a whole was just a highlight, just all the people we met, all the experiences. We went to Nashville, you know, we did Newport Beach in California. We really went all over, and it was an incredible experience, especially traveling with a film that I felt was the most complete project that I've ever done. Actually, a highlight I'll say is when we did LA Shorts. It was like 300 or 400 people in the theater, and it was sold out. People were trying to get in. There was people outside that couldn't even get in, and it was like just electric. And all the shorts that played alongside of us were all fantastic, and the audience was amazing. That was a really, really, really fun experience. But yeah.
That's super cool. I mean, I actually didn't know that it went to. I actually didn't even know South by Southwest was in Australia. That's kind of cool too.
They just opened. I think like a year or 2 years ago. I think they started 2 years ago, and last year when we went was their second year. So yeah, South by Southwest is expanding. Apparently, Sundance is going to do the same thing. They're going to start expanding to different like regions and whatnot.
Oh, cool. I didn't. Yeah, that's actually kind of awesome, because I always kind of think of those places as like pretty like American, I guess. So it's kind of cool that they're trying to branch out. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah. I have one real quick. Obviously, you mentioned that you got over like 40 million views on TikTok, like the OCD related content there. A lot of the time when filmmakers make a film, they make it, throw it to festivals, gets accepted or rejected to however many they submit it to, and they're like, now what? Okay, I'll throw it onto YouTube with the title as the title, and then publish it and hope for the best. Obviously, you have had a major outlier with OCD. You mentioned TikTok views, you mentioned stuff like that. Is there anything that you did marketing-wise after the film was completed, after it was ready to be publicly uploaded, that you think helped its success in that region?
Yeah, most definitely. I'm very much, not only am I the type of filmmaker that I think about, you know, the edit and everything, but I'm also thinking about the market. I've always thought about marketing around my films, and I think it's one part of me that I really enjoy. Like, I just love marketing things. I think like if I wasn't a filmmaker, I would probably be in marketing somewhere, because it is really enjoyable creating something and then being able to get kind of traction and attention off of that. And so... And that's why I do really admire a lot of filmmakers who have been able to market their films. Like even, you know, Longlegs, whatever you thought about the movie, the marketing was phenomenal. Like it was incredible. Even if you didn't like the movie, you have to admit the marketing was crazy. So most definitely, like when we were doing the movie, when we're in pre-production, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm only thinking about the movie. And then when we were on set, I had my girlfriend, Bridget, who's also a co-producer. She was filming all the TikTok content, and that kind of alleviated any stress for me to have to focus on that, because I just want to focus on the actors and the story first. But as soon as we were done, I was like, okay, let me look at all the footage you got, and let me see what I can do. And then it's going on TikTok, doing kind of research, preliminary research, what's trending right now, what are people kind of connecting with, and then making content based around those trends and then posting them at like the right times and whatnot. But most definitely the marketing was very intentional for OCD. We did, I think, like 35 videos or something. And I had a whole calendar written out of like, this video is going on this day, this video that day, this video this day. And I was intentional about what video is going where, because also the way TikTok kind of works is if you're able to get a viral video, every video before and after that will also get kind of a boost in views. So I was like, okay, I'm going to put the viral video up top, and then the video that I think isn't going to do as well, I'll post it the next day. That way, if this this one's going viral, it will kind of like help this one out.
Mm.
And I will say I knew the marketing was going to be decently successful, but I was not expecting 40 million views and then to have all the content creators on TikTok and Twitch to react to the film and stream it. It was actually insane, but very intentional with the marketing.
Yeah, and then that's obviously like an entire skill on its own, like knowing how to market, knowing what is like trending on social media, what will capture people's attention. Obviously there's way more to that than you could just explain in 4 sentences or whatever.
Right. Yeah, it's tricky, dude. Like I've had people be like, "What did you do?" And I'm like, I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it. I think it's definitely something that it's also like a feeling in a way, and I've kind of developed that feeling even with projects where I'll read a script and I'll know that this is special. And I think that just takes time of like working and constantly doing things. And like I remember before OCD, I was not really inspired to make anything until I heard that little idea from Connor, and I was like, that's special, And so like, and I don't really know how to explain that other than it's just like a gut thing. But yeah, definitely a skill. I'm not like the best at it, but I definitely do feel like I have an understanding for marketing for sure.
Yeah, I think I also noticed that in the comment section. I believe you commented something about like, please feel free to like upload or share OCD to kind of like any platform you want. Is that also you trying to like I guess get people to like post clips of it to get more attention on it?
Dude, yeah, like anybody posting anything, even if it gets 2 views, even if whatever it does is great, because then when you Google OCD or you Google my name, then those things will pop up, and then it kind of gives the illusion that it's more maybe popular like than it is, and then that also gives other people confidence to then go and like, well, I'm going to make a video now that this guy made a video. And, we had a lot of TikTok content creators like Kodak Cameron and Bryce Vaughn, who they have like 2 million followers each. They posted videos which were very, very nice and received very well. But also a streamer named I'm Dante. I don't know if you guys know him, but he streamed OCD live and he had like, I don't know, like 50 or 100,000 people in the stream. And it was just like, like everyone's in the chat like spamming like the Scorsese cinema, and like everyone's like and then people are like DMing me and like going on my Instagram and going, dude, like Dante's reacting to your shit, like you gotta go. And then I think he started a lot of the reactions. So when you type in like OCD movie reaction, there's a lot of people on YouTube. Like I've seen at least like 20, 30 videos of just people reacting to it. And I'm sure that's come from him just because he's obviously like a pillar in the streaming community. And having people like that helps a lot. But that's kind of stuff you can't really bet on because that was just organic. Like I didn't reach out to Dante. He just randomly was able to see the movie. So that's something that was just a nice, addition to our own marketing.
Yeah.
And then honestly, that is such a breath of fresh air to hear how open you are with people reacting to movies that people make. Because I mean, I'm sure you know all about like the Ethan Klein thing that's happening right now in the YouTube world, like the reacts type of controversies that are happening. There are so many people who are, I guess, they really want to gatekeep their projects to the sense of like, okay, only I can have it on my channel. You're not going to see it anywhere else. And like, that is like, I mean, you're entitled to do it, sure. But I feel like a lot of people that do that aren't necessarily seeing the bigger picture and how if you do open it up for people to do reaction videos and responses and stuff like that too, then that can just kind of balloon like the attention that it gets to a massive level, and then the next film that you make, you can kind of just ride that wave that openness created.
It's exactly that. And I've kind of always been like Chance the Rapper. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but when he first started out and making like mixtapes, he would just give his music out for free. He would let you like stream it for free. You didn't have to buy it. He would put the mixtapes everywhere. Everything was free. And this was at a time where obviously you had to like buy things and buy like CDs and whatnot. And if you were going to buy it on like Apple Music, you had to pay for it. Everything was free. And so I've taken a lot of inspiration from that because I've listened to interviews with him where he's spoken about how that just helped propel him even further because he was able to get the message out there to a wider audience rather than kind of like gatekeeping it to a small portion. And I'm even that way with like YouTube. A lot of people are like, well, why don't you charge for OCD, or why don't you do this for that? I'm like, I want everybody to see it, because the more people that can see it, then the more people you reach. And then, you know, you might meet that guy or that woman who's a producer who's like, I just saw your movie on YouTube. That's amazing. I want to help you and this and that. And I think a lot of filmmakers that I have noticed, like you guys have mentioned earlier, where, you know, they do the festival run and then they're like, what do we do? And I even noticed a lot of people don't even post their films on YouTube. They'll go to the festival run and then they'll just leave it kind of locked away for years, and they won't post it because they're like, oh, it was at the festivals, I can't post it. Or, oh, I want to put it on Amazon Prime and then charge for it. And I'm just like, why? Like, you're just, you know, I want as many people to see my movies as possible. And obviously, as you know, grow and you're doing a feature, you of course have to charge for those things because you're talking even bigger budget. But the stage that I'm at now, most definitely, I want everybody to react to it. There was a YouTube channel where they took OCD and they just made a shorter version of it, where they like kind of cut out any fluff, and then they made a vertical version they posted on YouTube, and it has like 3 million views, and it's the whole movie. And I was like, and they didn't like, they tagged me in the comments, but I was like, that's cool, like more people that can see it the better, because then, you know, who knows, like I don't know who's watched. That's 3 million new viewers. I have no idea who's there. I'm not gonna go and content strike them when that could definitely benefit me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, because I've actually seen it a few times now on like Reels or YouTube Shorts, where I'll see OCD clips, and the caption will be like something random, and then there's nothing crediting you or nothing mentioning the title OCD. And I was just thinking, like, I was like, wow, that's kind of cool because you're encouraging that, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think another thing with it getting so many views is that if someone does see it and someone says like, hey, I want to check out this film, what is it called? There's probably going to be someone soon who sees that short, looks at the comment, and then replies like, oh, it's called OCD. So I think I don't know. I just think that's like a really brilliant way, and I think that a really brilliant way to market your own film. And I think that's probably going to be like, I think that's kind of the future, honestly. And I think that's kind of like what people should be doing. And I agree, you shouldn't be gatekeeping your, you know, 12-minute project that, you know, like come on, like just upload it, dude. Like it's what's the worst that's gonna happen, you know?
I completely agree, man. I completely agree. Anyone who wants to take it, post it, you know.
Yeah. Also, like, not even that. It's just like when you have such a strong message behind it, and it's something that you really want to get out into the world. Like, obviously, I mean, we've beaten this topic to death, but it's just like something that, like, any eyeballs, especially when your message is as personal as it is to you, any eyeballs are good eyeballs.
For sure, 1000%.
Do you have something?
Oh, well, do you want to mention your thing now about how YouTube's the
yeah, sure, why not? I actually I talked about this on a different episode, but the mics died, so I couldn't talk about it.
Do it here, man.
Yeah, it was the thing that I was talking about, where I think people who want to be successful nowadays are going to need to start filmmaking or making their films with the end goal of putting them on YouTube in mind. Because if you think about it, YouTube can get you more views than any festival in the world could. Because, like, you've seen, there was Wesley Wang, who recently got signed under Aronofsky to direct an adaptation for Sony, like a feature film for Sony.
Right.
There was, who's the guy who did the Backrooms?
Kane Parsons, I think his name is.
Yeah, Kane Parsons. He just got signed to do a one for A24. The Rocka Brothers, they've done 2 already hugely commercially successful films. So I think people should start taking YouTube as a very serious medium when they have their films in mind. And, like, I'm not saying necessarily Mr. Beastify your edits or anything.
Right.
But just like editing with the retention graph in mind when you're looking at the back end of a YouTube video.
It's very true. And those are all great examples. And that's kind of what I have, you know, come to the realization over the past few years. You know, when I did Gold, which I did that in, I think, 2019, I was in a different mindset as a filmmaker back then. I felt like I need to make this movie, and it gets into Sundance, and then I've made it, and then I'm going to do this movie, and I'm going to do this feature. And it's just not how it works, especially nowadays. And it took me a while to feel kind of comfortable with where I'm at, instead of feeling like I'm not successful unless I'm successful within the industry. But I think what the traditional industry is nowadays is definitely much different than what it was 20 years ago. And it's not really as viable of a career path as it used to be. And I think a lot of people do turn their nose to social media and do turn their nose to YouTube, when those things have created, like you said, like the Rocker Brothers started on YouTube. They built this like great community, bunch of people, and I'm sure in some way through that they were able to meet people who had money, and then those people were able to help them create their movie. Those things are really, even like you said, the amount of eyeballs you can get on YouTube, OCD having like 40 million views off YouTube, and then TikTok and everything combined, is kind of crazy. When there's people that would pay like hundreds of thousands of dollars to get 40 million views and hundreds of millions of impressions, and we're doing that all organically on YouTube and all on TikTok, and that's really the only place you can do it. You know, sending your film, if we just relied on the festivals and that's it, and we didn't market the film, no one would have seen it. You know, I wouldn't be talking to you guys or anybody else who we had interviewed with, because YouTube is really kind of like the gate to like people. Everyone has YouTube. Everyone has TikTok. You know, like George Clooney probably has it. You know, like you go to like any celebrity, I'm sure they're scrolling on their phone. And that's the thing, is like, if you make something and it does well, then you might be in front of that person when, you know, you're kind of betting on the old ways of getting into a festival and then meeting a big agent and whatnot. That's how I was able to get my manager, and my manager is at a decent sized management agency in Los Angeles. And I wouldn't even have believed that I would have met somebody like that off of TikTok. But it was like the first month off TikTok I met him, and we were meeting at like, you know, the offices and everything. Whereas like I did the festivals for 10 years. I never met an agent. I met maybe like one or two like kind of, you know, shady, like creepy agents. But then, you know, he was somebody who I was like, okay, cool. Like this is actually somebody who's in the industry and can introduce me to people. And then I had met like a ton of people off of him. So it's exactly your point of just social media, YouTube, TikTok, all those things are just the way of the future.
Yeah, I think the old way is definitely dying. Just the traditional route that you mentioned with, you know, festival or getting your film in festivals, meeting people. It obviously it still exists. But I think that people are really, anyone who doesn't believe in, I think the new way, I think is sort of missing out and definitely not reaching their full potential. And I think, yeah, another part of it too is like, really, I'm going to put my film on YouTube. Like my, you know, 7-year-old cousin watches Skibbity Toilet on YouTube. I'm not going to put my film there, you know? Yeah. So I think that people might view it sort of negatively, but I think absolutely, like you said, you got tens of millions of views just by believing in the new system, you know.
1,000%. I mean, dude, it's like you know, you go back 200 years ago, people didn't want to drive cars, and they were like, no, horse and carriage is the way, you know. And then,
yes,
of course, like it's moved on. Everything advances and changes.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then also like this is something that people don't necessarily think about. I know I've heard some people bring it up, but like YouTube and Netflix are very real competitors. Mm-hmm. Like some people think like, oh, yo, Netflix is only competing with like Hulu and Disney Plus or whatever. Not YouTube. Those are idiots making gaming videos in their bedrooms.
Right.
But like all like their economy is eyeballs and attention.
Yeah.
And you when you're watching a TV show on Netflix, you could be spending the exact same amount of time watching videos on YouTube. Yeah. And there are, I strongly believe that there are agents or producers who are scouting YouTube for the next, like, Christopher Nolan, just like people scouted it for, like, Justin Bieber, who came off of YouTube, like, 15 years ago.
Oh, and it's true. I've met agents at like very large, like number 1, number 2 agencies in Hollywood, and they've all mentioned that one place that they do scout is TikTok, YouTube, you know, because when they go home, they can Google something, short film, what short film won this, or what short film screened at Cannes. Okay, cool. Like, oh, this is going viral on TikTok. Let me look at that. And then they see who's a viable option and then reach out to them. So it's for sure, definitely true.
Yeah. And then real quick, I want to talk about, I guess, more of your directing process.
Yeah.
because Owen and I have an answer for this that we kind of have settled on, but I was just wondering for you, and it varies project to project, but what do you think is the perfect length for a short film? Obviously it's based on the project, but like what do you think for you is the ideal time to kind of cap it out?
Man, it's a good question. For me, I don't know if I have a perfect length, because if you look back at my kind of catalog of shorts, they span really from like 3 minutes to 30 minutes. So
Yeah.
I think it's really just story dependent. I don't think I go into a project going, this needs to be 10 minutes or this needs to be 12 minutes. I do think there is a correct answer if you're talking about viability in the festival space. I think that answer is honestly like 10 to 14 minutes, because even maybe like a little less, maybe like 7 to 14 minutes, because if you're in that space, you're much easier to program. And I think a lot of filmmakers, they'll get declined from a festival, myself included, where I have had like 30-minute short films, and if they have a 2-hour block, I'm basically taking up 25% of their block that they could go, well, we can actually bring in 3 more filmmakers that have 10-minute movies, and we have more films that we can program. So I do think that's probably the correct answer if you're trying to get into festivals. But if you don't really care and you're just going story dependent, which is like how I am with OCD, it wasn't like this needs to be 10 minutes, this needs to be 12 minutes. I think in the editing process, I was like, I really want to make it 11:11, just because like it would be a nice little cherry on top. I had to settle for 12:12 because I couldn't, I like really could not take out another minute of the film. But the script, I think, was almost 20 pages for OCD, and then we narrowed it down to around 12 minutes. But there is a lot of scene direction and explanation in everything, because there's a lot of movement. But I didn't go into OCD going, this needs to be this length. I was just like, whatever length it is whatever length it is, and that's how I am with any project. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, absolutely. Because I think Owen and I kind of decided that generally for us, we like to do kind of between like 7 and 8 minutes. That being said, we just did a film that is, I think like 16 or 17 minutes exact, 17 minutes exactly. Yeah. Which, again, like going back to what you said, and we've talked about this plenty of times on the podcast, and our fifth guest on the podcast was a festival director, and he told us, like, yeah, if you're going to do a 15-minute film, you're going to have to be better than, 3 5-minute short films combined, because you're taking up, a lot of other filmmakers, right. I guess a presence at the festival. So I'm definitely worried about our longer project. Did you notice because I also did see that you had, unfortunately I didn't watch it. I'll get around to it, I promise. But I did see that you had a pretty long short film. Did you find that to be difficult to get into the festivals, or did you not even really bother with that?
Yeah, well, first of all, to you, man, like I would say you guys like just make your movie, don't worry about the festivals, don't worry about any of that. And as someone who's personally, been declined by like hundreds of festivals, they are great, and there definitely is a great community, and you can meet a lot of really cool filmmakers and sometimes people in the industry. But if I would personally trade being successful on social media with the film than being at a good festival. Like I really think that there's just way more room for growth on that side of things. But yeah, no, I've done multiple. I did 2. So my last 2 projects prior to OCD were The Tragic Death of a Frenchman, which is about 2 guys who accidentally kill their French drug dealer. It's like Pineapple Express. It's a crazy kind of comedy. And then I did In the Valley of the Moon, which was a 70s crime drama that is like Italian mob, very inspired by, Goodfellas, Donnie Brasco, all those sorts of things. But those 2 movies each respectively were around 26 to 30 minutes, I think, around that time. And so they're long shorts, but I wouldn't go back and change anything, because at the end of the day, too, it kind of is a good precursor for a feature, where if I was only making 5 to 7 minute shorts, tackling something that's an hour and a half would seem terrifying. But because I've done multiple 30-minute films, I kind of feel a sense of comfortability that an hour doesn't really sound that scary. And I'm like, I can definitely do an hour or an hour and a half and kind of like work your way up. But yeah, it is difficult to get into the festivals. Valley of the Moon, the 70s crime drama, did fantastic. We got into a ton of festivals. We went to, and that was the longest. I think that's like 29 minutes and 40 seconds. We got into Queens, LA Shorts. We went to New York. We really went all over the country, and it was an awesome time. We won a bunch of awards at like a bunch of the indie festivals and whatnot. But for Frenchmen, we got into nothing. I think we got into one festival, and it was Catalina, which was cool, but they screened us at 10:30 in the morning. So it was just us and the janitor, and it was really like awkward. And then they still made me do a Q&A in front of me and like the people who were in the movie. A very, very fun experience. But I do think Frenchman also too, it was the reason why I didn't do so well on the festival side of things was because it's a vulgar comedy. It's, it's really it's kind of silly and wacky and whatnot, and that's kind of the intention. It's really like a dumb movie, but that's what we wanted to make. So it did decently well on TikTok, but then TikTok started removing all the videos because, again, it's kind of vulgar. So like it was going viral, and then TikTok started removing the videos because it's like bloody and like gory and whatnot. But yeah, I wouldn't change anything though, because doing Frenchman, if I hadn't done Frenchman, then I wouldn't have done OCD. So I would just say take your movie and just make it, and that movie's gonna help you whenever you guys do features or TV shows, whatever your guys' end goal is.
Yeah, and there's also something to be said where, of course, runtime is important, but what I would argue is more important is not how long it is, but how long does it feel. Like if there's a 8-minute short that feels like it's 16 minutes or whatever, as opposed to a 16-minute short that feels like it's 10 or 12, like I would much rather watch the longer one if it's paced better. And then of course that just goes back to effective direction editing and storytelling in general, which of course just takes time to do. And that's something we talk about a lot too on the podcast, is like making a short film that wants to be a feature film. There are times and places for that, but a lot of the times, obviously, when making short films, you don't have the runtime to be able to explore character arcs as effectively as you would be able to if in a 90-minute piece as opposed to like a 15-minute piece.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like from personal experience, I couldn't agree more. Like I did a short called West of Calico, and it's the same, I think probably about the same runtime as OCD, and it feels like fucking 2 hours, and like, it's just like, it feels long. It's like, it's not a great, but it was a movie that, again, I wouldn't trade doing it. I wouldn't be like, oh, I regret that movie, because again, it was a precursor to OCD, kind of building my confidence as a filmmaker, because I think we made it during like quarantine, like 2020, and so it was a movie that we were all in like a creative funk, and it kind of helped get us out of that. But most definitely, having kinetic energy, having solid edit and good direction and a captivating story, you can make an hour and a half feel like 20 minutes. And sometimes I'll go into the movie theater and watch a movie and just feel like that it's over, like that was 2 hours, and then I'll watch a movie that's 90 minutes and I'm like, oh my god, when is this going to end? Like I've seen movies on both sides of the spectrum, so most definitely.
I was wondering also, when you're because we've tried to work with new actors sort of every time that we do a film, and also like new crew. The last one we did, like we mentioned, the 17-minute one, that we worked with quite a big cast and quite a lot of new crew members. But do you have like a dream team that you kind of work with every time, at least for the crew side, or do you kind of try to force yourself to work with someone new every time?
I don't force myself to do anything outside of what's necessary for the project. So if I know that this character, like for instance with Steven, I'm just like, it's not going to hit unless it's Steven. It's just not gonna be, it's not gonna get the point across. And so I knew we needed to get someone like Steven. And obviously that was very different for me, because any film prior, if you guys go back and look at my kind of filmography, you'll see it's pretty much just like Roz, who's, Owen, Ryan, who is the robber, he's the one with the shotgun, and Landon, who's also the other robber, and Olivier, who's the cashier. They have all been in like all my other movies. And so I've pretty much just worked with like my best friends, which I think is something you kind of have to do because they're free. And like, honestly, that's one thing, but also they're very talented. I'm sure you guys can tell, like Roz and all of them are, I think I can say with no bias, are all fantastic actors. And, having people like that in my life who I can trust and be like, okay, I know you're going to do well here and I know you're going to do well there, and believing in your crew. And also, I think working with people like your, sound designer or editor or whoever it's going to be, working with them on multiple projects, I think helps a lot, because the more you work with them, the more they understand your kind of cinematic language and how you speak as a filmmaker. And so my composer, Alexander Artenson, I've worked with him for the past 6 projects since I was like 19 years old. I'm 26 now. And him and I have a fantastic understanding of each other, whereas like when we first started, I was a little timid to give him notes and whatnot, and now it's like when we were doing the OCD score, I was like, this is great, but it's not right, and we were just on the phone until we figured it out. And having people that I think you have a good repertoire with is really important. But also, like, don't be afraid to work with new people, for sure. If you feel like you need somebody new, you have to go and do that, and that's kind of how I feel. But yeah, I've been very lucky to have just an excellent crew, and I didn't go to film school. I didn't do any sort of schooling or anything. It's kind of all just been organically through making movies, meeting people, and then, oh, my friend knows somebody, and then, oh, well, why don't you hop on board and let's do something together, and it's just sort of like slowly built off of that.
Yeah, we're the same way. We never went to film school either, so
good, man.
It's good to see. Good to see the no film school team.
Film school. I'm not a hater of film school. I think it's just like it just wasn't right for me, and like I think what's good about film school is it's a networking place, and that's what's amazing about it. Is like, because you're in film school, an editor and a sound designer, people who want to do these jobs. Whereas when you don't go to film school, it's like, okay, where do I meet these people? So like that's definitely a hill you have to climb. But I think in my own personal experience, it's been more effective for me to make the movies myself. And that's kind of my form of film school, because I've made some bad movies and that's helped me understand how to make a better movie. And until you slowly work up to a movie that you're really proud of and you're like, this is exactly my creative vision and whatnot. Where I think, a lot of times in film school, some of it's very theoretical and not hands-on. So it's a little bit difficult to actually hone the craft of because being on set and talking about being on set are two different things. They're two vastly different skill sets to learn and to hone.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, right, film school is literally just 4 years of making movies, right? Like making movies and meeting people. Like what you have focus on any of those movies, like whether it's like a specifically do X for this movie and whatever. Like it is just 4 years of making movies, and like if you don't like to learn in that environment, like me personally, like I just hated school, and I could not imagine 4 years of sitting in a classroom again. Like my main thing, like if you would rather learn out in the field doing that, then more power to you.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I never did well in a classroom environment. I hated it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely just getting out there and kind of figuring out what works and doesn't work is the way to go. Definitely have made a lot of films where we're just like, holy shit, I hope this never gets seen by another living soul because it sucks so bad. I think, but that's really important. And I think that like the learning experiences we have from those films are absolutely like super valuable. And it's going to help us make hopefully better films. Hopefully we learn our lesson doing that. But that's kind of the way we've been doing it. And it's been somewhat successful, it seems.
It's the way I think you got to do it. They call it a failing forward, and as long as you're failing forward and you're self-aware enough, because I think also, as someone who's pursuing the arts, you kind of have to be a little delusional, right? Like you got to be like, no, like I know I'm gonna make it, and that's a sort of sense of delusionment. But you also don't want to confuse that with confidence, and like you need to be confident enough, but you need to be a little delusional, but you don't want to be too delusional, because then if you get too confident, then you don't realize that your shit stinks. And I'm very self-reflective about my own work, and I can go, I know that this can be better next time. And it's the same with OCD, where I go, there's a lot of things that I would improve upon, given my next project. And it's been like that with every project. So I don't consider anything I've done a failure, but if I were to look at certain things like West of Calico or gold those films, and I'd be like, yeah, maybe they didn't do as well online or festivals, I still took something from them, and without them, I wouldn't be able to make the movie I made today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then moving forward, what do you have lined up in terms of projects? Like, do you have some more shorts planned, or you're still working on the OCD feature?
Yeah, I'm kind of done with shorts. I've felt that way for the longest time. We are working on something, myself, Connor, Ryan, and another person who I was introduced through Connor. His name is Adrian. And it's just a nice little team that we have this story that we're all really passionate about. And it's something that we're going to tackle within this year. But it's something I'm not going to speak on too heavily, but it's definitely a longer format project, because for me as a filmmaker, I think something that I've noticed when I was younger, I was always like, oh, if I'm not making a feature, then I haven't made it. But I think anytime you get to make kind of what we've spoken on earlier, like with what Steven said, anytime you're on set, like, you've made it. You've done the thing that's so difficult to do, no matter if it's long format or short format. And but I definitely, as a personal goal, I want to be able to tell a longer format story for character reasons, for story reasons, all those sorts of things. And that's exactly what we're working on next. But we're going to announce it hopefully somewhat within the next few months. But we're still working on, the scripting process and getting all that figured out, because I don't really announce anything until it's a sure thing. I kind of take a hiatus in between projects, and I don't post anything on social media until I have that thing ready. But yeah, no, I'm working on a longer format project. It's going to be really exciting. It's something very different. It's not a short, but there's short elements. It's kind of like an anthology, almost very like Jim Jarmusch, if you guys have seen, like Coffee and Cigarettes, that sort of vibe, but with our own kind of twist on it.
Yeah,
Nice.
awesome. I think we might go to a couple of things about OCD. Not as important as what we've talked about so far in the podcast, but questions that people are gonna want to know. What was the budget for it, and how did you raise that? If you're comfortable speaking on that.
Yeah, the budget was, I think we landed around 15 grand to make the movie. And that was a lot for me, because we did Frenchman. If you guys go back and watch Frenchman, we made that for 3,000, and then prior to that, the 70s crime movie we made for 7,000. So having a movie that is like almost double both of those I was like, okay, we definitely needed a little bit more money to bring someone like Steven on board, and to get the location, because the location was the most expensive part, having to shut down a convenience store for 3 days. But we were able to get that through honestly my TikTok audience, because I had made a GoFundMe, and we had people who had been following me, for like a year or two. They donated like $500, and I was like, oh my god, like, this is just a random person that I've never met that just follows us and likes our stuff, giving us like $500. And slowly, I think we were able to raise like maybe $7,000 or $8,000 on GoFundMe, and then privately, some people had reached out and given us like $2,000, $3,000 outside of the GoFundMe space, because obviously that stuff, GoFundMe, I think takes like a small portion of it. But we were able to raise that through TikTok and everything, and then our budget landed around 15 pre-festivals and everything.
Yeah, and the people who kind of donated or fundraised privately, what, like, did they do it like kind of expecting their money to just kind of never get back to them? Like, they go into it with the expectation of no ROI?
I mean, yeah, like, it's a short, man. Like, I think it's hard to be like, it's hard to try and like I would be terrified trying to be like, oh, you're gonna get your money back. 'Cause I'm like, I don't think you are. Like, it's very tricky. So most definitely, like, I think most people are going in with the intention that they're just kind of funding a dream, and that's where their money's going towards. But we did, we were like, any amount over $500, you'd be considered an executive producer, which we had a couple people who followed us who were like, I just want to be an executive producer. And I'm like, okay, like, that's really cool. If like that's what's good for you, like, sweet, But no, there definitely was no ROI, unfortunately. And even YouTube, some people think like, oh, dude, you got like 2.1 million views and like whatnot. We didn't make any money off YouTube because YouTube was, we had the song I Put a Spell on You, and that was at the end of the film, and we didn't have the proper copyright agreement to monetize that content. The thing is I had reached out and I was able to get the synchronization request form. I was able to fill all that stuff out and do it for the festivals, so we were completely cool going to all the festivals with the song. But when it comes to posting on YouTube and being able to monetize it and make money off of it, they charge you like a significant amount, where it would be like a festival, request form would be like $500, $1,000. Whereas to do it on YouTube and be like, hey, I'm going to make money off this, they're like 15 grand. And I'm like, it's just not going to be worth it. So you could still post on YouTube if you have copyright material. But yeah, no, we weren't able to make any money off the YouTube or anything like that.
Was there any consideration to swapping the song for a different one so you could be monetized?
No, not at all. I'm very particular about, making sure that any film I do is the most complete form of the project possible. And I don't really want to compromise and go, okay, if there's a real song, like a needle drop at this point, I don't want to then go, let me get a royalty-free song and swap it out, and it doesn't have the same effect, and it just sounds royalty free, and I don't like it. And of course, I have like OCD has a ton of composed music. I mean, the whole thing is pretty much composed by Alexander. But sometimes you need a needle drop, and that just that. When I heard the song, I was like, "That's the end of the movie. I know that's the end of the movie," and I don't want to compromise my vision just to miss out on a little bit of money.
Yeah, makes sense. Totally makes sense. I respect you for it. That's a great decision on your end.
Thank you.
And then of course the question that you probably are expecting: what camera did you shoot it on? For anyone who's curious.
I've actually never been. I don't think I've been asked this.
Really?
Which is funny. Yeah, which is funny. I mean, I've talked about it definitely, but I'd love to answer it because we shot on a Sony A7S III, and every film we've shot on, if you go back to Frenchman and Valley, we shot it on an A7S II and an A7S III, and we used G Master lenses 24-70 for both Frenchman and Valley, and then with OCD, I was able to get a sponsorship through Sue, which is a lens company, and they're fantastic. And we really wanted anamorphic for this film, but obviously to rent the anamorphic, we were looking at trying to rent like an FX3, and everything was just getting too expensive. And I was like, dude, we've already done 2 movies on the A7S III. Let's just see if we can get some anamorphics. And it was a really random email that I got from Sue, because I've gotten sponsorships on TikTok where people have reached out to me, like Hollyland and Sue, and they would go, hey, we'd love for you to make a video promoting our product, and we'll pay you, and we'll send you the product for you to keep and use and whatnot. And Sue reached out to me, and they asked me, they said, hey, we have this like $30 tripod we would love for you to review. And I was like, wait, this is the company that we were looking at for the lenses. And I was like, let me email them. And I emailed them back, and I was like, I know you're trying to give me a $30 tripod, but what if you gave me like $4,000 of lenses? And they were like, yeah. And they sent them, and we got to keep them. And shout out to, again, my girlfriend, and also shout out Canva, because we made the pitch deck for Sue to kind of, I think, which helped sell them, to send us all the lenses for free. But we got a full lens kit. It was a 133x anamorphic. We got like a 24, I think, like a 32, a 70, and then like a 50. I think that was the lens kit they gave us. But yeah, Sony A7S III, Sue anamorphics, and we shot the entire thing on a Ronin. We didn't have time, even though like I'm not really a big fan of shooting on Ronin, because obviously sometimes you can tell, it's on a gimbal. We just did not have enough time in the market, and it was a decision on my end where taking the camera off, dismounting it, putting it on sticks is just going to take much longer. Whereas like, throw 4 or 5 Apple boxes, put the Ronin down on the stand, that's your tripod. Let's just go that way. Like, I'm very guerrilla in that way. Like, I don't need it doesn't need to look pretty as long as it gets the job done. And yeah, that was kind of our whole camera kit.
Yeah, it's awesome, because I know a lot of the times that's great that you shot it on, I guess, the official like a prosumer camera, because I know there's this whole like renaissance with like the FX3 being used for creator or whatever, and people are like, oh yeah, you can shoot Hollywood level movies with this, but then you look at all the short films that got into South by, like, oh yeah, we shot it on an Alexa Mini, and it's like, okay, well, clearly this isn't actually happening.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to see that somebody who made a film that looks as good as it does and performed as well as it did basically everywhere can actually shoot on a lower level, relatively, video camera.
I'll be the first to tell you that the whole idea that you need an Alexa, the whole idea that you need, like an FX3 to make a good looking movie, it's really complete BS, because if you don't have like a good lighting team, if you don't have a good cinematographer, and if you don't have a good colorist, all those things really do make a massive change in the picture. And I was able to get our colorist, who's amazing, Ben Chakowski, I was able to get him on In the Valley of the Moon, and I edited the movie first, and it looked good. It looked okay. And when I had met Ben, he was like, I love this movie. I want to color it for you for free. I was like, okay, yeah, give it a shot. And then in my mind, I'm like, the fuck do I need a colorist for? Like, I'm doing it. Like, my color's good, whatever. And then he sent it to me, and I was like, oh, shit. Okay. Like, I know why you're the professional now. And that was something I didn't understand, because I was doing everything myself, and I was like, oh, my color's good enough. But really, like, if you look at my color and his color, it makes the picture look like a big massive movie, and my color looks like an indie film, So I think that's also something, is if you don't have a good color. So I've been to festivals where I've seen movies shot on Alexa Minis and they look like they were shot on an iPhone. No disrespect, but like, if you don't have the proper lighting, and that's the thing a lot of people don't understand, is like, the Sonys are really easy to use, and sometimes when you jump up to something like an Alexa or even like a Red Epic, they take a lot more care in terms of the lighting, and they're also not as easy to work with on the post-production side of things. Like, the Sony is so easy to work with, where I can make the footage, warm or cool, whichever way, whereas some of these bigger cameras, you have to light them intentionally on the day, and you don't have as much freedom to kind of change those things after the fact. So yeah, no, you definitely, and not to say that the Alexa and whatnot cannot produce a beautiful image. They absolutely can, but you need to have the proper team in order to understand how the camera operates and how to get the best image out of that camera. And the same can be said on the cheaper end of things. You can make a cheap camera look like, $20 million.
Absolutely.
I was not expecting you to say that camera was what you used to shot. Honestly, I thought.
What did you think it was shot on?
I don't even know. What did you think, Owen?
I mean, I was expecting like a Blackmagic. One of the Blackmagic cameras, yeah.
Yeah, I could not tell. That was like really good job with the lighting, and also the production design. Like, you had great locations too. And I think that's a huge part of what how good the image looks is definitely like the location that you shoot in, like the gas station or the convenience store, sorry, and the just the I think, what was the other,
the house.
Yeah, like all that stuff was just shot really well, framed really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, all that stuff really contributes to the quality of the image as well.
And I couldn't agree more. And that's just a shout out to my team. The team we had was incredible, from our cinematographer, Jeremy, our colorist, our gaffer, Anshul, just everyone who had a part in creating the image. And then, actually everything in the frame, I did mainly all the wardrobe and costume design and set design. And then my girlfriend also helped out. She did kind of all the home stuff, like all of Anna's apartment, all the kind of like girly stuff that I wasn't very good at. Like, I was like, I don't know what goes in a girl apartment.
Yeah.
And she helped me out a lot with that. And so, like, just really everyone who contributed to everything in the picture and then outside of the picture, it wouldn't look that way without them. So, shout out to my team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
All right, awesome. Well, Luca, on that note, thank you so much for coming on, man. We really appreciated it. It was a phenomenal conversation with you. If anybody wants to find out more about you, kind of get up to date on your upcoming projects, where can they do that?
You could do that really anywhere: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Luca Pizzoleo, Pizzoleo. And yeah, thank you guys for having me. It was really fun.
Yeah, of course, it was amazing. Yeah, and then if anybody's watching, if you want to check out our previous episode where it was just us three reacting to our films, you can check that out. It's been on screen for the last 10 seconds, and thank you so much for watching.
Yep. Sweet. Great.
Awesome. Dude, thank you.
Yeah,
that was great.
Thank you for coming on. I was not...